All right, so we're back with Laura Brand, our criminologist and our serial killer whisperer. And last week we listened to some Bittaker tapes, early Bittaker tapes, and we didn't get to this one. So this is the last portion of it. It's the 4 minute. It's about 4 minutes, and then after that we have another serial killer that Laura talks to, Wayne Adam Ford, and he profiles, believe it or not, Laurence Bittaker. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you do that, how you kind of you use when you're talking these kids, especially in San Quentin's death row, how you kind of bounce them off of each other, because like they're all, some of them hang out together, some of them don't hang out together, but you know it's a pretty big death row. They all know each other, and what's your philosophy on trying to ask about other serial killers to other serial killers?
Well, with this one, he had just watched the Toolbox Killer. So this is kind of like his notes of like seeing the interaction with me and Bittaker through the TV show. That's where like a lot of his analysis is coming from.
Yeah.
But also, when there's an active case that I'm looking into with a serial killer, I'll go to them and be like, what do you see? Just recently, the two cases I've gone to Wayne with and a lot of serial killers was the Long Island serial killer case.
Oh, Gilgo Beach.
I went to a lot of them with that case. And there's one in Massachusetts called The Woodsman. And
I know that case.
You do know that case?
I've heard of that case. Yeah, it's scary.
It's virtually unknown. But this guy was murdering prostitutes. Ironically, so my father's a professor and my mother taught at a Catholic school, a third grade teacher at a Catholic school. One of her students in her class was one of the victims was actually placed on his property. Well,
God.
Yes, my mom. I remember as a little girl, like my mom coming home going, "Oh my God, the student in my class, there was a dead body found on his property." Because he was killing them in Worcester, Massachusetts, and then their bodies in Hudson, which is like right in my backyard. So I've always been kind of interested in this case because like a serial killer right there while I was growing up. And this one guy has been convicted on one rape and murder in West Boylston that they believe is the Woodsman. But just recently I've been hearing from friends from like high school and stuff that the quote unquote Woodsman has resurfaced and that prostitutes started dying again. So it's actually kind of gotten me back into the case. And I actually kind of want to go interview the guy that they believe is the Woodsman in the max security prison in Massachusetts. It's just kind of one of those things I've grown up with. And I've looked at some of the things about, the resurfacing. And I mean, it is prostitutes. It's
similar.
Yeah.
Because Wayne Adam Ford, that's what he did. He wasn't he a trucker up in Santa Rosa area? And he killed prostitutes, which Gary Ridgway did too. And when I interviewed Robert Keppel, did I say his name right?
Yes.
Yeah, Robert Keppel for My Uncle's a Green River Killer. And
we'll tell people who Robert Keppel is. Well, I don't think everybody knows who Robert Keppel is.
He's an icon, but he interviewed Bundy. He's known for Bundy, but
I mean, how would you describe him, Laura? I mean, he's a genius in his field.
Yeah. I think he started off as law enforcement, but he came up with the idea for VICAP of tracking them, kind of going from state to state, which is what Bundy did. So he was kind of like, a trailblazer really in the field.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you wanted Wayne Adam Ford to kind of talk to you about this guy, the Woodsman, to see if you can figure out, or?
Well, no, I did go to Wayne about the Woodsman, but this is the tape we're going to play today is about Bittaker.
Got it.
After he's watched the Toolbox Killer, him kind of weighing in on what he saw with the interaction with Bittaker and I. Like a lot of the serial killers at San Quentin Death Row, they know we're talking or they might see us in a cage together, but they don't get to see the conversation,
Got it.
firsthand. So the Toolbox Killer kind of gave them all a look into my relationship with Bittaker. And every single one called me and weighed in on, what they saw in the show and what they thought. And this is kind of Wayne's, version of what he saw, what he thought. And he's pretty on the money about everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty common thing to do. So like I was saying, Robert Keppel had done this with Ted Bundy when they were looking for the Green River Killer. And it was the same area. He was looking for any kind of similarities to their technique or to their MO. And apparently they do this a lot.
Well, it makes sense. Why wouldn't you go to a killer to find a killer?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like they're in that same ballpark. They're in that same mindset. They're the compulsion is all the same. So that's really interesting. And then what about the other serial killers that weighed in on there? Was it all pretty similar, or did anybody tell you something that you didn't know about these?
They all heard like Bittaker crying and stuff, and they all said that was real. And I had asked them, I go, how do you know that was real? They're like, and they all had different reasons for that, but they were like, that was a genuine, authentic, when he cried.
Emotion.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting. Like all of a sudden he has an authentic, genuine emotion.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't have that emotion when he was torturing these girls, so he could stop.
Well, when your heart's, about to go out, I guess that's when.
Maybe.
Yeah, you're about to meet your maker.
The real emotion. Yeah. Maybe you find a heart when your heart's about to go out. I don't know. But
yeah.
Okay.
All right, let's play this. Let's play this one with Wayne. This isn't Wayne Atwood. This is Bittaker. The last 4 minutes.
By the way, I just want to say I did bleep out what you're about to hear. A couple of bleeped out parts. This is out of respect for the victims, because what Bittaker did and said in that van should never be out there.
No. It's horrifying.
All righty.
Poor girls.
She wasn't in a catatonic state, in the fetal position in the corner, and you didn't come over to her with the toolbox while she.
Roy claims she was.
Oh my God.
I mean, I bleeped out what I was asking him and what he was saying back to it.
Okay. Should I keep on playing? Is there anything where it's not beat?
And it'll start again. I just didn't want what I said. But he responded back on there.
Okay, so when you were with Gilliam, this is when you and Roy started taking all these photographs of you and Gilliam, right?
Well, I took this one, I think, of him, and he didn't like it. He slowly burned it. Yeah, he was from the rear of him, and you could see he was cast on his ankles.
So he didn't ask you to take the picture of him. Is it because he thought that you were going to use the picture as blackmail?
Yeah, like he having evidence of him doing something like that, I guess.
Well, yeah, Larry, that is blackmail. Okay, so did Roy take any photographs of you?
Oh yeah, yep, several. Yeah, several. I would direct him and look at him, and maybe change the pose.
So you were literally directing the entire scene.
This was originally one of the ideas for getting into that at all.
Larry, did you have a script in your head of exactly what you wanted, how you wanted it to look, what everyone said, just a whole script, like a screenplay mapped down in your mind?
Yeah, I did, but it kind of all went out the window in reality. It turned out to be nothing like I would, fantasize about.
A lot of sexual offenders and serial offenders have told me, the fantasy just never, ever measures up to reality. I hear that all the time. And is that how it was for you? Did it measure up to the fantasy? And how did that make you feel?
I wasn't really that conscious of it or aware of it at the time. Like after the first one, I figured, well, it wasn't that much fun. Maybe it's just the fact that this is the first time and blah, blah, blah. And then the second one wasn't that very attractive and so on. So, this wasn't a good sampling. So let's
figure that out after the first time, that the fantasy did not match this idea. I mean, the reality didn't match this fantasy inside of your head. I mean, didn't that occur to you after the first time? You just kept trying it. And I mean, you keep telling me that Gilliam was your perfect victim. She was, beautiful, and she was submissive, going along with everything you wanted her to do, and it still did not measure up to the fantasy. And she was playing along with everything that you wanted.
Well, go on ahead.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
You know, I probably had more actual pleasure masturbating than the calm conditions of what's going on there. So fantasies wouldn't involve rape per se, you know.
If the fantasies didn't involve rape, then why are you taking girls in a van to rape them? You have 30 seconds remaining.
Anyway, you got how many more minutes left? 6. I think you made Cody get it, so one last one.
Yeah, one last one.
He always loves to tell you when it's time running out, whenever you start pushing him.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he knows you're on to him. He knows he can't get out of it.
Yeah.
You have him backed into the corner and he always, I gotta go.
They'll do that in person too. They'll look up at the clock in the visiting room and be like, about an hour. Like,
is that because they just don't want to acknowledge what they did?
Yeah, I think that's a part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to talk about this stuff. You're talking about, stuff that they don't want to talk about. It's uncomfortable for them, even though they enjoyed doing all this stuff and got off on it. I mean, it's just, they're, especially in that point in his life, he's sitting in his cell for forever and he's dying, and he doesn't want to remember all the bad shit in his life, and you're dredging it up, and you're really kind of drilling down. I mean, were you talking about, do you create a script in your head? I mean, and they do. I think you're absolutely correct. I think they
you heard he's changing poses and directing him. It was like, so this is all like a theatrical play in your head. I mean, that's how far his fantasy went. And, a death row inmate said to me, Laura, tread lightly because, because these guys are scared of their own shadow. And here you are coming in, holding a mirror up to these demons. And I mean, that kind of surmised it perfectly because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, you are. You're holding that mirror up. You're forcing them to look.
Mm-hmm.
And why do you think that he wouldn't have acted in violence towards you? By showing him that mirror and like shoving it in his face, forcing him to face it. It's interesting to me that he didn't have like a compulsion to like destroy you.
You would think, especially if someone's holding a mirror, that they would like, attack the person holding the mirror because they don't like the reflection of what they're seeing. This is where I think that's where the level of skill comes in, of like being good at what you're doing and having that trust and rapport built before you kind of like really show them that mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is the type, the time it's going to get scary for them is when they see that reflection, or you start going in deeper saying, whoa, that was a whole thing planned. So you got the van, so you had a whole script, you got the girls, but you're sitting here saying there's no plan. You're saying like, this was just like all on a whim. So then I'm holding that mirror up going.
Mm-hmm.
The death row inmate that you said that told you that these guys are scared of their own shadow and that you're holding a mirror up. I mean, when was that told to you?
Within the last couple of months, right before it was dismantled, because I kind of came in, I would say when I found out death row was being dismantled, like, I'd built trust and rapport with a lot of the inmates, but like when I had found out, it's being dismantled, this is the end, I was more, how would I say it? More cutthroat, way more cutthroat going in the round where, you guys came up there when I was going in.
Yep.
Because I had to be. They're leaving. They're going to Jim Hole, might die.
They could die.
So it was like, this is my time. If I'm going to be cutthroat, it's going to be now because I have to get the answers. I have to go and kind of be like, you know what? I don't care if you're not ready for the mirror. You're going to see the mirror. I don't care if you're not ready for, me get tough with you. I'm going to get tough with you. I got really tough with all of them towards the end. But it was a ticking clock. I had to.
Right.
Yeah. It's still ticking.
Yeah. Literally. Yeah. Every day.
Yeah. So one of the other things I thought was interesting is that he kind of he hesitates every time you question him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's like really calculating whether or not he really wants to tell you anything.
He struggles. He does. You can hear it in those audio clips, and Alan passed it too when he heard it. And like I told you in person, he would make this maneuver. This was the maneuver. He would go, like he was spitting out his tongue. And I called Alan. I go, why does he keep doing this, facial?
Mm-hmm.
And Alan was like, he's revealing too much to you and you're making him uncomfortable because he just keeps spilling it all out. Like that's why he's like a throw up signal to you. He doesn't know how to handle it.
That's so strange.
It's like two different people. It's like he was completely possessed by a demon when he did all these things because he's such a tiny little weird man.
Well, you know what's crazy about you just saying that is when I read the reports, so in the appeals, they actually track down all the extended family, like the attorneys do. So I had the reports of the bio mom and the bio mom who kept her 4 kids and reports from them. And what was interesting is the oldest sister she kept 4. So she had Larry and Charles. Those 2 got, out for adoption with the aunts and uncles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then 4, it was the oldest sibling, the girl. She was born after Charles that she kept. And she wrote that her little sister and her mom almost had like a split personality like that. And it was very interesting. And even like the attorneys know that like it was very similar to Bittaker too. So I don't know. They had wondered if the mother and the little sister had bipolar, if possibly that was maybe why Bittaker almost seems split at times, It is strange because if you look at Dina, who is in episode 2, he looked at Dina as pure. Like but then he still wanted to kill her, but she was pure. And it was like he looked at different girls, I noticed, as like pure or impure, which is very like split,
Yeah.
Yeah, but wouldn't you have to have a split personality to be a serial killer, especially to function? I mean, he was functioning in society. He was going to a job. People at his work. I mean, did they know he was a serial killer or they just think he was kind of weird?
Well, there are reports from where he was working in Burbank where they said some of the guys he worked with, he showed them some photographs of younger girls and stuff. And some guys did say to him, "You're sick," and he would laugh. He really wasn't even quiet about it. Like it's actually kind of crazy.
Listen, there's creepy guys everywhere. I mean,
I'm sure in the 70s it was twice as much,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But it took an effort to get pictures back then. It's not like today where you just whip out your phone and take pictures. There's guys walking around in Walmart taking illicit photographs of people, women. They catch them all the time. There's, just the creep level is just, it doesn't go away. Creeps don't go away.
Right.
But, I would think that anybody who is, is there any serial killers who don't have a split personality?
I think they all at least can compartmentalize to a degree where it almost seems split. If it's not split, they're able to compartmentalize to that degree where it almost seems that way, because they really do. It's almost like the fictional version I could say is if you ever watch the show Dexter, he has friends, the families, but then he's killing these people.
Mm-hmm.
They're able to compartmentalize prey from family or friend or foe type of deal. It's but it only makes sense in their own minds of who they hunt and who they love, quote unquote love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Exactly.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
and then, all right. So this is Wayne Adam Ford, and he is profiling Laurence Bittaker after he saw
the Toolbox
Killer that you did.
Wait, but before we go into Wayne, let's just talk a little bit about who he is.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, right. So I'll do a nutshell. So Wayne Adam Ford is a serial killer from the 90s in California. He was a long-haul trucker. He's been convicted on 4 murders. Most are runaways and sex workers. But he's a rare breed of serial killer because he actually turned himself over to the police. He had a human breast in his pocket, and his brother and him went into a police station. He put the human breast and said, "I need to be stopped."
Didn't he have an accident that affected his frontal lobe?
A motorcycle
a little bit of that. Yeah, motorcycle accident. Yeah, they give. Yeah, it's strange. And then so he was convicted of 4, but did he do a lot more?
That's the mystery, I would say. We've had a lot of talks about that. We can explore that in further episodes, but I do have a lot of audio recordings of that too.
All right.
Yeah.
And then so were you surprised of his take on this?
No, because I've gone to war with a lot of different serial killers, and he's always kind of been dead on the money. I mean, they really are. They can like sense one another. They know about each other. They're all sharing that wavelength of like those cases and hunting, and they can give you an insight no other person could ever give you into the mindset of a serial killer.
Yeah. I mean,
And you're going to see that. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Super primal. All right, well, let's listen to it. It's about 13 minutes. I'm sure we'll stop and talk about it along the way.
We will be monitored and recorded.
Yeah, the ice pick is still in the skull.
Well, they found that skull.
No. He did that to multiple.
I see. Well, that was another thing in his story that told you he was lying. Because he said that he stuck it in there and thought it would be a quick death. Well, if that's true, then why did he keep doing it when he knew it wasn't going to be a quick death?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, so that part of the story initially was just...
He was a different person in person when there was no recording on too.
Oh, sure.
He was a totally different person with me.
Yeah, well,
That's why I'm excited for the book. This is my chance to actually tell the real story and like what really happened and what he really was like. Yeah.
I thought you were very personable. I thought you made a great post. I didn't like red. I mean, Jabba the Hutt with red hair. I've lost respect for the FBI because they have this very jaded approach, and that causes you not to learn the full thing you can learn. I thought the guy was real because you could tell when he was lying.
Oh yeah.
It was obvious when he was lying.
Yeah.
When he was minimizing, it was obvious he was doing it.
Right.
And it's somewhat embarrassing when you're talking to somebody who may not appreciate your love for torturing people, as he obviously had. He was really perpetrating serious evil. But the fact is the guy was sincere when he showed you remorse. A smart guy can actually act like he's remorseful when he's not. But when you get older, that happens. You get more sentimental, So
Yeah.
I saw that in him. He was now a harmless, used up old rag. I mean, in his earlier time, he had champagne taste and a beer budget. I mean, he's a guy who would never attract young, attractive women, which was what he actually went for. The youngest and most attractive girls he could find and lure into his web. And he'd already been separated from society in a way that he was never going to be allowed back in. He was already a pariah. So he had nothing to lose. He had nothing else to lose but to serve his own needs. And
That's interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Very.
I mean, based upon all the recordings that we've heard and what you've told us about Bittaker and what we know, I mean, he nailed it.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He was just a pariah, know.
And he's just a loser. He could never get those girls.
Yeah. But
It's
look
really
at all of them. You think any of them could have gotten those victims? Like in real life? No, never. No.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that, you know, because Wayne Adam Ford, I mean, the first time I saw him, he looked friggin'. I mean, when we were recording with you and you were doing that Zoom with him, he's friggin' scary looking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's scary looking now, but you know,
yeah, he looks like a Yeti.
But when he was younger, he was a decent looking man. You know, when he was a former Marine, you know, so I don't think he really fell in the same kind of category as Bittaker. You know,
Yeah.
He seemed like he was a man's man, and he was just screwed up in the head, whether it was the head injury or the combination of him, the way he was raised. But it's interesting how he described him. Sounds like, you know, he's a used up piece of nothing now.
Yeah.
You know? Like, you know, I mean, that's when you saw him, we see pictures of him. A lot of these guys, they're just, you know, wrinkled old. I mean, it's like when I met Manson, I couldn't believe how small and frail he was.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was like 5'2" or whatever, and he probably weighed about 120 pounds.
Yeah.
You know, and he was just shrunken. You know, I had to look down at him.
Yeah.
So, interesting take. Let's see what else he has to say.
Right. Use that other core staff as a guy could help him out, you know. I mean, it was a distraction to his own creepiness, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember the time well because I was hitchhiking during that period of time, and everybody hitchhiked. It was people were trusting. There just weren't that many. There weren't that many disenfranchised people like him at the time. People were still accepting of other people, but society has become very, very unaccepting of differences since then, and that's why there's a lot of serial killers out there undiscovered so far. And for every one that's out there, there's 1,000 of them that have crossed that line. So,
well, that's interesting.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you've been saying, you know? And, you know, probably, you know, the FBI statistics, and would they say there's probably 200, 300 active serial killers?
You know what's funny? This is what I always tell people, read the fine print, because the FBI says there are 50 serial killers out there. But if people read the fine print, that's at any given second, there are 50 active out trolling right now in America.
Yeah.
These are 50 right now on the street trolling, hunting for a victim.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean the totality of serial killers. The real estimate is about 5,000 or more.
And, you know, he said that right there. He goes, and for every how many there are out there, there's like another 1,000 or so that are just on that line who just haven't jumped over that line yet, that you know, that are basically mentally they're serial killers. They haven't committed yet their first murder, but they're going to.
Yeah. It's an active fantasy. They're probably out trolling, you know, in the fantasy, you know, phase of it. And it just takes one little stressor for them to cross that line and to go into that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Here's some more.
I really enjoy. What's that?
I was going to say, what do you mean hasn't crossed that line?
Well, first of all, there's so many advanced, and they already know this. The FBI already knows this. They have the capacity to take a lot of facts, mix them together, and take out pertinent information. There are trigger points, and there are events that put somebody over the line. Sometimes they might do something accidentally that hurts somebody, and then, hey, you only burn one. You know what I mean? So once the first one happens, it doesn't matter after that. You know, you're falling down, so you lose your inhibition. He didn't have any after he came out of prison. Money wasn't a thing for him. He could make money. What he wanted was to be loved, but it wasn't going to happen. So he took what he did. He took what he could, and he forced them to pay attention to him by torturing them. They had to He's completely aware of all he was targeting. So what he was looking for is some connection. Yeah, in the worst way. But he took what he could get.
No, it's true. It was very warped like that. Like, psychologically, that's what he was looking for.
Absolutely. I've studied this backwards and forwards, and I've been part of it. I can feel the places I never had to go, and I can feel the places where I was. And,
right.
That's interesting. Can you explain that to me? He said he could feel the places where he wanted to go. What does he mean by that?
I think that means, or at least in serial killer speak, like maybe that's a line he wanted to go to, never crossed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, you'll hear serial killers will say, they'll always say, like, it just got duller and duller. I've wanted to up the ante.
Got it.
And, Cindy, that 10-minute clip I sent you, hear that in the tape where a couple of them are describing that. They're saying,
yeah,
I wanted to up the ante. And I was like, describe it more. Like, some are like, oh, I went to necrophilia, I went to cannibalism. It's almost like they're chasing, that first time high.
The dopamine.
Yes, exactly. But it's different paraphilias along with, this serial killing that they're doing, or hunting and trolling for the victims. And they're all searching for really feeling just anything.
Yeah. And it's just like they create a tolerance level for themselves where they don't get the same kind of dopamine rush just from the repetition of doing the same type of killings as well. I did it, but I didn't get the same rush. It's almost like it's like an addict.
Literally like an addict. Yeah. It's very similar. Very similar.
What I also thought was interesting is he's pretty introspective about his mind and how it works and how Bittaker's mind works. I know we've heard a lot of serial killers. I mean, he seems pretty articulate, and he's spent a lot of time thinking about this. Whereas
Ford is very introspective. I mean, not too many serial killers are. Ford is definitely one of them. And that's why I think I go to him when I want to bounce ideas about other serial killers off of him, is because he loves to he likes to look in the mirror at himself.
That's exactly right. Where you have Larry, who was just kind of like doing a bleh every time like that. He's like really and I saw that when we first saw him, when you interviewed him on that Zoom call, that he wants to get to the reason why he became who he was.
Yeah, like he wants to be on the journey with me to find out
exactly why. Which is rare. So
very rare. Typically,
so he obviously, and plus the fact that he turned himself in, that was like the first step in his road to empathy for anything. Well,
I will say, when I was pregnant, this was 2018, when I went out to do my rounds of interviews, and I did Bittaker, Clark, and Ford. I remember it. I still have my notes from going in there, and the first thing I have on my notes, it says Bittaker and Clark always numbered their victims, where Wayne named them, and I put that down in my notes.
Well, that's very interesting.
Wow. Yeah. So, a lot of people love to group serial killers all together, and interviewing as many as I have, I always say, they're all so different. I mean, look at Wayne and look at Bittaker, like as related to the two tapes.
Yeah.
It seems like Wayne had remorse though for what he did.
Yeah.
In the interviews that we saw when you were doing them, a totally different vibe than Bittaker.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for one to turn themselves over to the police because they know they couldn't stop. I mean, that does say a lot. And like I said in my notes, I even wrote down he's naming the victims by their names, not number 1, number 2, number 3. Yeah, I would definitely say there's an empathetic side to Wayne, and the fact that he's willing to face himself in the mirror, and he's willing to explore himself and others. And he's actually, I can't say this on air. but he's doing a lot to help a lot of people right now. That's what I can. Mm-hmm.
All right, so he's on a journey. He's on a different journey right now.
Yes.
It's just a shame he had to kill people to get there.
Yeah.
It's like didn't have to be like that, but
yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, these poor women, and there is a Jane Doe that he's connected to.
Well, you know what? No, we found her. Remember?
That's right. Sorry, I'm tired.
We identified her. But I will say, you know, what I say to the killers every day is, even though you've done something monstrous and the worst thing a human being could do, you know, every single day we have a choice, every single day, to do something right, to do something wrong, make a new choice. And that's what I always say, like, I'm about to go in and see them too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, change it. You have a new day to change that.
Yeah. And that's the choice. That's the choice they all have. You know, and some choose to continue to be a monster, and some just choose to continue to be manipulative, because we've heard those conversations that you've had with them. And then you have someone like Wayne who uses this opportunity for introspection and maybe doing something better with his life and helping others.
Yeah.
Trying to create at least something good out of whatever they did bad on this planet.
I would say bringing light out of darkness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's see what else he has to say.
First of all, he's warped. There's no doubt about it. He has to be warped in order to imagine he's getting what he wants.
Right.
So part of his story when he talks to you is the way he wished it was.
Right.
The way it really was.
Yeah.
So he's created a slanted reality for himself too. So it's not he wants to believe that they wanted like it.
Oh, he does. He did. Even he lost it. He wrote a manuscript, and that's exactly what he wrote in it. Like a fantasy version of these girls really actually wanted it.
Right. Because that's what he wants. That's what he parents wanted.
Yeah.
I learned in my life that if you let that desire take over you, if you fantasize too much, you spend all your time doing that, you masturbate all the time, which he clearly was a masturbator. A master masturbator. Anyway, he created material to do just that. The problem is when you overindulge in that part of the male psyche, you start producing more adrenaline, more testosterone.
So he basically just said what you said as far as the tolerance level.
Mm-hmm.
It says when you start accessing that part of your brain as a man,
Yeah.
you have to keep on upping the stakes.
Mm-hmm.
Generating more testosterone, whether it's they're doing it, they're starting it with pornography, and that escalates into something else. It desensitizes them. Makes the human an object as opposed to a living, breathing thing. And that's a big problem with pornography in general for people who are addicted to it. Is like they and I would imagine, because like you said, he's talking about the testosterone. It's the one common trait, the one drug that all these serial killers have that female serial killers don't have.
Right.
They don't have the testosterone. That's the fuel that fuels a lot of things, fuels violence in men. It's just that thing that they access when they need to for fight or flight. But if there is no fight or flight and it doesn't get used, it can be manifested in a real sadistic way.
Yeah.
Where some people
well, I think it was Ted Bundy who said, stop burning Catcher in the Rye, start burning the pornography. That's the root for everything, the cause.
So is that what Ted Bundy said? That he said, stop burning Catcher in the Rye and start burning.
Yeah, stop burning Catcher in the Rye, start burning the pornography and stuff.
Yeah.
And the one thing I will say from the serial killers I have interviewed, especially from like, the 70s or 80s, pornography wasn't like, on cell phones or the computer like it is nowadays, but they had the True Detective magazine. And every single one has reported they used to look at those True Detective magazines. And I've ordered one from the 70s to like look into it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's all violent. The girls are all bound. It's very sexual. And it's almost like S&M porn from the 70s in a magazine. I guess that was just the magazine at the time, the True Detective. But yeah, it's pretty violent. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's porn, but it's almost like a gateway into it, or what.
Yeah, it's part of the fantasy. It's part of the fantasy. And,
Right.
and you had to make an effort to get those things. It wasn't like today it's at your fingertips, everything at your fingertips. You had to go somewhere. You had to find an adult bookstore, which is usually on the seedy part of town.
Right.
And, because you couldn't even order it through the mail. I mean, the only things you can order from the mail were like, I think it was like Playboy, I think. Or I don't know if you could. I don't even know if you could have done that either.
Yeah, when I just went up to Northern California with Rob to look into that case that we're looking into.
Yeah.
We talked to this woman who owned a general store in this tiny, tiny town, and I was asking her about him, and she goes, "Laura, the only thing I remember is he would come in for hours and looking at this these gross magazines." I was like, "What was the magazine?" And she was describing it. I go, "Was that you mean True Detective?" She goes, "That's it." He would come in and look at the True Detective magazine for hours.
Yeah.
So this magazine, the True Detective, I guess back then was like literally like, I guess, a serial killer porn from back in the day.
Mm. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they didn't realize what they were doing. It was like this.
Yeah.
It was a dog whistle for serial killers.
Yeah. I mean, really, because I mean, that's what you're saying. The girl's bound and, just bondaged up, but in lingerie. And it was just like,
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Here's Wayne Adam Ford again.
So deeply in his mind because of the amount of emotion involved on both sides, his and the victim, that he retains a very good memory of what happened. Emotions are really a strong factor in memory. And so the more you involve your emotions,
remember in the show, right, when he was talking about the first murder victim and how detailed he got with it?
Yeah. He's already emphasized all these things so many times. And then the problem is while you're doing it, it's not as good as you think it would be.
Right. It's never up to the
point. It is never. But this guy.
Explain to it's hard to hear him. So what is he trying to say?
He's saying the memory, like his memory recall of the crimes was so good. So when Bittaker,
Laurence.
Yeah. And then he goes into him saying, but you could tell, a lot of what he said was how he wanted it to be. And I said, well, yeah, that's the fantasy. And we start talking about how the fantasy is never as good as what happens. These guys have a fantasy of what they want it to be like, and it's never, ever that way. Like, that's why a lot of rapists and serial offenders will report they wanted like a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife fantasy, and it's never like that because, of course, it's a rape.
Yeah.
You're kidnapped. But they have this, I know it sounds crazy.
I mean, it's insane.
It's insane.
How could you think that those two things would be the same thing?
Well, when they, say a girl goes missing, a lot of the times detectives will ask about the girl's personality. Was she extroverted? Does she smile at a lot of people? Because with sexual offenders, you can just smile at them. And in their minds, they
they take it like you want to be with them.
Yeah.
What's happened to me? Like crazy lunatic falling. I'm like, no, dude, I just smiled.
Well, I think that's
all it takes is a smile.
But seriously, there are some wacky guys that if you smile at them, they immediately think that you're in love with them. And then they're like, okay,
well,
that's not normal behavior.
Well, I think it's universal because it's the same on the guy side. If a guy's nice to a girl, sometimes she can get the wrong idea and start creating this fantasy that, he
but
likes
then
her.
does she turn into a serial killer?
No.
I was going to say how many girls are getting vans and raping guys.
No. But see, that's the thing. So why is it that it goes from, okay, I have this thing in my head about this person, and then all of a sudden now you're killing them. Like I still cannot wrap my brain around this.
The way they think it could be a smile. It could be, a lot of them they'll go to like a grocery store and the girl will be like, okay, have a nice day. And they're like, she said, have a nice day. And she smiled at me, and they'll wait for her to come out, because it's just like any type of, time they're seeing kindness or a smile, and they're perceiving that as, come on. I know it sounds crazy, but in their warped mind.
Like I said, I've experienced that. Like, smile at someone and they automatically think that you want them.
Yeah.
Like, what? I don't even. Who are you?
Yeah, we explained in the last podcast that little supermarket store. Yeah, same thing.
I mean, I don't know. I just think it's interesting that Wayne was able to dissect Bittaker so quickly, because he seems to do it rather quickly. Like, just from watching the Toolbox Killer, he's able to kind of tell you, well, he's lying here. He is a little weasel. He could never get these women. This is what his MO was. It's interesting how he just zeroes right in on what Bittaker was like. Because he didn't know him, right?
They did know each other. But, they were friendly in prison. But they weren't friends. They didn't really talk that much. I mean, they knew of each other. But for his, diagnosis.
I forgot. This is like Melrose Place for death row. They all know each other.
Really?
Right? So, people don't even know what
they weren't sitting down having, profound talks, on the yard. But, this is all from him just watching, the Toolbox Killer, my interaction with Bittaker. This is everything he's surmised from that. Yeah, because,
Wayne has a creepy side, too. There's a picture of him with you, and I was like, that is the most horrifying picture I've ever seen, because of the way he's looking at you. Like, he's going to just
there's actually a story beyond that picture, which is really funny.
Oh, well.
Do you want to share it, or is it not?
No, I can. I guess it'll give away the mystique of this picture that looks so, he's like.
He looks so dangerous.
Was it kind of like a stage thing?
My favorite show is the show Dexter. And
of course it is. Why would it be anything different?
It's just such a great show. But when
it is a good show.
There's that picture of I forgot. Yeah, Deborah, his sister's like looking forward, and Dexter's like looking into her eyes, from that side profile. And I said, Wayne, let's recreate that picture. But I forgot that I'm 5'1" and he's 6'3".
Yeah.
So when we tried to recreate this picture, he's like a foot taller, looking down on me, and that was the end result. And it looks like just like really, really creepy picture.
It is the creepiest picture I've ever seen.
And I would imagine that's like a technique you use to kind of like ingratiate yourself with them, kind of, so it's not all business. You're doing something.
Yeah, because it's awkward.
Fun.
Rob, you've been in the cage when they come around with the pictures and they're just like,
it was bizarre. He posing with
like, why did you come out with a picture?
They do it.
Like, what's
it's like,
what are you like? Is it a zoo? Like, what are we doing here?
It is. It really is. It's
it's very bizarre.
It's a human zoo.
Let's just remember what these people did to get there, though. That's the part that really bothers me so much, is the pain and suffering that they cause, not only the victims but their families,
right,
and their communities, and the poor victims that suffered. I mean,
it's horrible.
I just think Bittaker was the most sadistic one to me, besides the other one that we're working with right now.
I was going to say, I think it's
besides him, it's like a race between those two. But Bittaker is terrifying because of the white van, the things that we grew up with, knowing as little girls, like never go near a white van, never go near a van.
We were at the mall today, and we were at the mall today, and I had to park next to a beat up white van.
I'm like, don't park there. Oh my God, don't park next to the van. He's like, I'm right here. No one's gonna bother you.
There was no other parking spaces, so it was like I had to park there. But she was like, white van.
Well, one of my best friends, her daughter's now 13. And like, we'll go and pick them up and like bring them to the mall. And I'm always like taking her and her friends, and I'm like pointing out the white vans. I'm like, don't walk beside them. And she's like, stop, you're scaring all the kids.
Well, yeah, you have to. Because you walk by a white van or a van and they open the door and they take you.
Exactly.
Don't go near them.
Just in the time that we've been on this podcast, we get crime alerts in our neighborhood, and there's something happened, like someone got attacked right in front of a supermarket.
Yeah.
And we live in a really nice neighborhood.
Yeah, so it can happen anywhere.
But
Exactly.
I think what's interesting about, I mean, when I interviewed Robert Keppel for the Green River Killer, and he did talk about asking Ted Bundy all these questions and things to kind of understand the mind of a serial killer. And if you don't know who Robert Keppel is, Google him, look up his books. He's a genius in the field.
Yeah, he's passed on.
But he was a lovely man, and I interviewed him for the show. And
he was like one of the first mine hunters too.
Yeah,
along with John Douglas. He was in that category. I think he worked for the FBI, didn't he?
No, I think he helped them. But what's his book? I'm blanking on the name of his book, but it's something Motives. Anybody who's interested in the field, read that one. It's one of my all-time favorites. I read it like 5 times. I mean, it's brilliant. The book is brilliant. I mean, I highlighted copy because I'm still going through it. I mean, it's one of the best out there.
But I think it's interesting. I mean, to ask these other serial killers to profile.
I think it's important if you can get them to talk.
It is.
And if you can kind of figure out the mindset of someone and learn from them, I mean, that's huge. That's huge. You're getting their game plan. You're getting the way they think. I mean, that's how you catch these guys. That's how, that's why they started the profiling unit at the FBI. They realized that they got to study these guys to, because there's repeated behavior and it's similar, which makes sense because we're all humans and we do the same things. And there's copycats and guys who are doing this. Some of them may be studying certain things. I mean, now we're dealing with the attempted assassination of Trump. They're really looking into this kid's brain now, and why he would have done that. He was a loner. I mean, he was ostracized. He couldn't even get in the rifle club at high school. So, what does he do? Does it on his own and takes it to a whole new level. He was studying Lee Harvey Oswald. I mean, it's like, this is crazy.
That's the thing. There are serial killings all the time. There's school shootings, mass shootings.
Well, those are spree killings.
But aren't they serial killings too?
No, I think
technically, I don't. Not a lot of forensic psychologists subscribe to this new version or whatever. The FBI has gotten rid of spree killing, so now a spree killer is a serial killer.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Technically, but you have to understand the two pathologies are very different.
Yeah.
It's very different. Yeah.
They're not hunting their prey in that sense of like a Bittaker who is
not go through the 7 stages that a serial killer goes through.
And they're usually not anticipating surviving.
Right.
So it's like, it's literally just one and done, but let's see how many I can do.
And the motives are completely different as well.
Oh yeah. It's more about the thrill of being known for this, as opposed to
being famous for something horrifying.
Whereas,
I should dig out some tapes. Wayne and I have done deep dives into mass and spree killers too, and he believes the ones who become mass or spree killers. There's the serial. So the kids are shooting up high schools right now.
Yeah.
Those would be our mass or spree. But the ones who don't commit those acts right now in high school age, the budding age for a serial killer is the age of 27. So the ones who kind of want to keep going and get away with it, more methodical ones, their budding age is going to be at 27. And Vronsky and I have had talks about this, which means we're about to see another wave of serial killers uprise. Yeah.
Well, you also have a lot of disaffected young men too. You have people, because the young men in this day and age right now are just getting hammered. They just don't. And I think you're right. I think there's going to be because
I think history repeats itself, and the late 70s, early 80s was a breeding ground for serial killers.
I think the end of this decade, we're going to see another 70s type round.
Wow.
Well, that's terrifying.
That is terrifying.
So let's not let that happen.
Mapping of it, and that's when it's supposed to hit. So we're supposed to hit another, And he went really deep into it because if you look at those kids grew up in the 40s with war, and same with the kids grew up with this, like everything that's going on in America. politics, everything, but they're even more flooded with violence and sex, you know? So
it's at their fingertips now.
right, exactly.
It's scary. Well, it's good that you're doing all this work because you're going to need to help a lot of people. So
it's scary.
It is scary. All right, Laura, thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.